Hi, I'm Rosanne and welcome to my garden. Today I'd like to talk to you about Irish moss. Irish moss is arguably one of my favorite ground covers. I've been cultivating it for about 20 years. Some of the Irish moss in my garden is a lot new this year, and others, as you see right in front of me, is about 20 years old. This is where I first started growing Irish moss. The proper name for Irish moss is Sagina subulata. Some people also talk about Scotch moss. Scotch moss is much more chartreuse in color, whereas Irish moss is very deep green. I personally prefer the Irish moss, but I totally have seen beautiful displays of Scotch moss as well. Today I'd like to take you in different parts of the garden where we'll talk about really the care and maintenance of Irish moss and how to propagate it. So let's do that next. Isn't this beautiful? As you can see, we have a mosaic pattern of, it's actually Sandy Creek sandstone here in what in the wintertime is our bird feeder area. And in the wintertime with the bird feeders, the seeds fall and basically kills everything underneath it, which is why we have a lot of stone here. But what's really interesting is the Irish moss reseeds or comes back every year in this area as very fresh looking new Irish moss. Again, it does a wonder, which I like because were it allowed to continue to grow and get denser, you wouldn't be able to see the mosaic pattern of the Irish moss every year. So I actually prefers that it starts fresh every year. Let me show you a close-up. Here's a close-up of the Irish moss. It's very delicate, and I said it actually produces little white flowers in the spring and summer. Here's a picture of some white flowers. The new Irish moss is very fluffy in nature. This resembles more of what you'll find in nurseries when you try to buy Irish moss. It doesn't look thick and dense as the moss I showed you in the front of our yard. Again, it's fluffy and light, and there are actually like tiny little seedlings that reproduce. Here's another area of my garden where Irish moss plays a significant role. Only instead of just filling in between flagstones and narrow patches, I have a large mass of Irish moss growing actually in between stepping stones, often 6 inches. This area here is, at least probably 2 square feet. What's really important in maintaining Irish moss, to me there are 2 things. One is keeping it clean and free of debris. Oftentimes you'll get rose petals in the spring, or peony petals, or leaves, or needle drop. And if you allow that to stay on top of the Irish moss, it'll actually choke it out, and what's underneath the leaf, the moss will die. I haven't found that to be much of a problem because when there is a lot of debris, I do one of 2 things. I take a leaf blower and I actually just blow the area, and it's very efficient. Or 2, I take a broom and I just sweep it clean. That works better when the moss is thick and dense. But at any rate, keeping it clean of debris not only makes it look better, it's a lot healthier for it. Let's show you another part of the garden. Hi, here's another part of the garden. As you can see, the Irish moss in this case is thinner and it's just filling in the cracks. This is what I'll call medium-aged moss. It's been around maybe 5 years. We redid this area about 5 years ago, and I probably put a dozen little tiny strips of moss in between assorted flagstones, and it's filled in very nicely by itself. When Irish moss is happy, it will self-seed, expand, and grow, and you find it popping up in unusual parts of your garden, which I love. I always let my Irish moss go. It's probably the one perennial that, you know, if I see it, I totally embrace it, regardless of where it's popping up. It does need, this is a sunny area. It gets at least 6 hours of sun a day. So it needs water about every other day. The shadier the area the moss is in, the less water it'll need. I would say the ideal environment for Irish moss is dappled shade or dappled sun, you know, part and part. It does need water if it's in full sun, but it can handle it as long as you keep it moist, and it doesn't need to be a lot of water. Just a light sprinkling with a hose, and it's good to go. One of my favorite ways to spread moss around in the garden in areas where I'd like it is to divide it or dig some up and replant it. Here's a perfect area from which to harvest. I'm going to cut a patch of moss out of this. It'll naturally fill back in, and I'm going to give some to a friend of mine. So this is what I need. This would probably be, if I have one tool, it would be my hori-hori knife. I want to cut a clean, sharp line. I also like this, this tool. I'm not sure what the proper name is. I use it for dividing perennials. Again, this Irish moss is a perennial. It is not like what I'll call real moss. Real moss has a totally different vascular system, reproduces differently. It's the kind of moss you see on, you know, rooftops and the sides of trees. That's not what this is. This is a perennial, and it follows the regular principles of perennials. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut with this. To begin, I'm going to cut a square of moss. Again, having a very sharp tool helps immensely. I'm just holding the moss down so it doesn't come up while I'm still digging it up. And I've done it. This is a great tool because I can simply pry up the moss and grab it. You can see I have some really clean, sharp cuts here. This is perfect because I haven't wasted any of the moss. All I'll do now is put it in a nice little pot, and it looks pretty moist. I don't think I need to water it again, and wait for my friend to pick it up. Some final thoughts as we wrap up this video on Irish moss. I should have mentioned I'm in zone 4. Irish moss seems to do quite well here. We have harsh winters, but snow cover seems to help, but it's always come back. I've never had a problem. As far as the things I do to keep my moss healthy, I make sure I weed it. I make sure I keep it free of debris by cleaning it and you know, sweeping it or blowing it. And lastly, I make sure it does have enough moisture, especially when it's planted in full sun. If it's planted in shade, again, it'll need less water, but about every other day works well. Hope you've enjoyed this video and have an opportunity to watch more of mine. Bye.